Greg Fryer and Shaun Klinger. Welcome to Australian Musician.
Thank you.
Hello.
It's quite a pleasure to have two great gear minds here together in the one room. Shaun, you're a restorer and builder of custom amps, also a fine guitarist and recording and performing artist. Who are some of the guitarists you admire whose tones have inspired your pedal building?
Wow, that would be Jimi Hendrix would be the first one. Angus Young would be a definite close first. And then recently, there's a whole heap of Aussie players. Ian Moss, Shannon Bourne, Marcel Yamini, or James Ryan, Brett Kingman. All these guys I look up to, and it's great. They're Aussies, and we can't forget Brett Garsett either. So, yeah.
What about you, Greg?
Yeah, I grew up listening to Hendrix, Clapton, and then along came Brian May, who was a big interest, but yeah, just the whole range of popular guitar players. Yeah, the Ian Mosses, of course. I saw Cold Chisel many times in concert in the late 70s. Yeah, similar influences.
Shaun, your fascination with fuzz, where did that begin?
When I was younger, I had a real, would have been an obsession with listening to records and then wondering why the guitar I had didn't sound anything like the sounds that were coming off the records. Mind you, I think I had a Ranger guitar and a little, I forgot what the name was, it might have been a Legend amp or something like that. Over time, I discovered that there was such a thing as these little boxes that the guitarists would plug into. And then from there, it was just, obviously, the first pedal would have been a Boss heavy metal pedal or something like that. And you sort of fiddle and figure out, well, that's getting close to that sound. And then, from there on, it was just an absolute obsession just to figure out those tones.
What's the secret sauce? What makes a great fuzz pedal?
Well, there's not many components in a fuzz pedal, so you fine tune those components, and every fuzz pedal is different because we fine tune our hands as well and the way we play guitar. So depending on the guitar you use and the hands you have and the way you hit the strings, the fuzz pedal will react differently. So I found that there's not really one fuzz that would suit everybody. It's all different. So, and we found out that's pretty much the same with treble boosters as well.
Yeah. Greg, obviously treble boosters is a specialty for you, but was that the first pedal that sort of stood out to you?
One of them. A friend of mine called Nick Thurn actually made treble boosters somewhat similar to Brian May's back in the late 70s. He was the first guitar player I ever saw playing a Vox AC30, a Stratocaster, fantastic player, and he had this treble booster. Yes, so that I was introduced to treble boosters from that. He made one, showed me how to make them. So then along came the distortion pedals, the MXR, the fuzz pedal, fuzz face, and the Ibanez Tube Screamer.
Yeah. As we know, your main claim to fame maybe is your connection with Queen's guitarist Brian May. and the replication of his gear, the Red Special guitar replicas, the Deacy Amp, and the Treble Booster pedals. For those who don't know, how did that initial collaboration come about?
Well, I wrote to Brian's management in early 1996 and said that I was interested in making a really accurate replica for him. I realised I got interested in the whole thing, having been interested many years earlier, in 95. So I decided I wanted a new challenge in my guitar building career, wrote to his management, said I'm interested in doing this, and they checked up on my bona fides, wrote back and said, yes, you're welcome. If you want to fly yourself over, you're welcome to have a look at it and have a go at reproducing the guitar. So that's how that began.
Yeah. In 2003, I interviewed Brian May and I asked him about the guitars. And I'm quoting this, he said, talking about you, he said, he spent 2 years making 3 copies of my guitar in identical ways that I made my original. He went to so much trouble to replicate every single material and technique. Every thousandth of an inch was checked. Those things are masterpieces. I have 2 of them, and he has one. Mine are called John and George. His is called Paul.
Correct.
You must have been chuffed with the way things turned out and the feedback from Brian.
Oh, definitely. It was a dream come true. Yeah. Worth all the effort and sacrifice.
I believe his original guitar that you spent quite a bit of time on, and he hardly had any work done on it in the previous...
Up to that point. That's what Brian said, yes.
Yeah. And the last time you actually built one of those guitars was, what, 96?
Yeah, it was those 3 replica guitars, finished at the end of 97.
So the connection with Burns guitars, can you explain that?
In what regard? Do you mean the pickups?
Your connection with Burns and Brian May.
Well, it's only a slight connection regarding Barry Gibson, the former owner of Burns, who I met, and if I understand your question correctly, that he was one of the people that we got together at Brian's studio in 2007 regarding the mid-price guitar, the Brian May super guitar. The Burns were going to supply the pickups, do a deal with Adrian Turner, who was going to make even better versions of them. So that's the connection there.
Right. Shaun, someone who's interested in pedals, were you aware of what Greg was doing at the time?
I was made aware of Greg's work through Brett Kingman, and tried one of the treble boosters and was just, I got pretty excited about it, and at that point wanting to be a guitar, a pedal builder in Australia, to find out that there was someone that was already sort of setting the benchmark. It was really exciting.
Yeah. As well as the Red Special guitars that you made, you also had the honour of pulling apart Brian's original Deacy Amp, a small amp which belonged to Queen's bass player John Deacon. Can you relate that story of how John came across that amp originally?
Yes, well, Brian suggested that I telephoned John in July 1998 when I was there in Brian's studio, Allison Hill. And lo and behold, John picked up the phone, which Brian said he never even answers my phone calls or Julie's PA's phone call. So good luck. I telephoned him. John did pick up the phone. I said, could I come out to meet you? And he said, I'd rather can't we just do it now? And I said, okay, and rolled off the question. So he explained how he cobbled together the Deacy Amp. It was around 1971. He was walking down London Street, having recently joined Queen. Being an electronics student, he noticed his curiosity was taken by wires dangling out over a builder's skip. So he looked inside, saw the circuit board, said, I could use that for a guitar practice amp. Took it home, cobbled it up with a bookshelf speaker he already had, and that became the magical Deacy Amp. brought it along to Queen rehearsal not too long after. Brian said, "Oh, what's that, John?" And plugged his Treble Booster in, and lo and behold, this is unbelievable sound of these three components.
Yeah. So you got to pull that amp to pieces and have a look inside?
Correct, yeah. Brian suggested we look at it. I think I suggested to him, why don't we find out what it's all about? He said, great idea. We did it in February 1998. I photographed it all, unsoldered it all, took it apart, speaker, etc. And that began another journey of trying to make replicas.
Yeah, and what was the connection with Vox, with that amp?
Well, again, the connection with Vox, they produced those little white sort of BM1 D keys that were a mass-produced version of approximating that sound. The circuit was quite different. It didn't have the transformers or the germanium transistors, but that was their attempt, a modern version of making an amp that they could sell to a lot of guitar players that would get a very similar sound.
As well as the Deacy Amp and the guitar, you also worked on the Treble Booster pedals, Brian May signature pedals. In layman's terms, can you explain what a Treble Booster does?
Rolls off a lot of bottom end, boosts the some aspects of the mid-range and treble end, but again, it's every different design is tapered, and so it'll give you a slightly different response of where it boosts, where it cuts.
So what's the story of the journey of you and Brian and the Treble Booster pedal?
Oh, Pete Malandrone asked me if I could, if this was in 1996 when I flew over and met Brian, his guitar tech. Pete said, Brian, I really like it if you could make one of these and reduce the hiss, make it less noisy. He said, you're going to need one of these. So he gave me one of Pete Cornish's pedals I had a look at, and came back and with Colin Bloxham's help, we changed things a little bit and made different versions of it that I then took over with my three guitars.
As I asked Shaun about what makes a good fuzz pedal earlier, what is it about your Treble Booster that puts them high and above the pack?
I don't know. That people like the sound. They produce a certain sound. They're very useful for the Queen Brian May sounds. I found some Strat players like the fatter versions. People like the sound. That's all I can explain.
Yeah. The common story is that if you've got a Guitar Hero, you can buy all their gear but still not sound like that guitar player. However, with the Red Special replica, the Deacy Amp and the Treble Booster, you can get a pretty good Brian May approximation. It's an exception, I'd say. Would you agree with that?
I guess so, although I'm not really such an expert on all the other Guitar Heroes and replicas of gear. So I guess you're right, but it comes down so much to the individuals playing, and that can, like me playing Brian's guitar in his guitar room with his amps, it doesn't sound like Brian. It sounds like me being a hack version of Jimi Hendrix or Eric Clapton. So it comes down so much to the player, feel, technique, and that's the most important thing to work on, not these silly gadgets,
reason we've got you both here today is because there's a collaboration happening. When did you guys first cross paths?
After Brett Kingman told me about this gentleman called Shaun Klinger about 8 years ago, when Brett had one of the Treble Booster special pedals, the one with the foot switch and a couple of knobs. So it was after that I spoke to Shaun when I was selling some foot switches, and then mentioned later, asked him if he'd be interested in making some pedals for me, because I work part-time in the marine industry, which is I've always done since I was a kid in school, and we discussed producing pedal designs together, which we're working on. So that's how the journey started.
So the new collaboration, what are your individual roles?
Well, I'm looking at it from a guitarist perspective. Someone that's I play quite a lot, so because the market is really flooded with a lot of stuff, and if you're going to produce something, you want to produce something that clearly sort of achieves a goal. So with Greg's help and his obsession with making sure things are right, and that's part of the reason why with the treble boosters, they are noisy. I've got an original Range Master at home, and I do not know how people ever use them. They are so noisy. This guy right here is so obsessive. He tests each transistor, like to the point of fine-tuning the noise that comes out. Not only the gain, but the actual noise. And he has his own sort of way of doing that, which is quite unique. And I'm sort of trying to obsess in that same way from more of a musician standpoint.
Greg, obviously you've been making custom pedals for a long time. Why did you decide that now is the time to get in touch with Shaun and ramp up production?
I should have done it 10 years ago. Because I just got to the stage in my career where I thought, I need a break, and I shouldn't do this just myself. You know, it's ridiculous. I've got to get someone fresh and more experienced in electronics in some way, and someone who's really good at what they do to assist me bounce ideas off. So yes, it's time.
So what are the main models that you'll be concentrating on?
Priorities from, well, Shaun is building the standalone treble boosters, the 3 red, purple, blue treble boosters, but also very soon there will be the treble booster special, the one he mentioned that was black and now blue, but it's foot switchable, couple of knobs. We're also working very soon to make a pedal that will sound as close as we can get it to Brian's legendary Deacy Amp. So that'll be in a foot switchable pedal.
What sort of numbers you're looking at outputting?
In terms of, do you mean numbers of units?
Quantity, yeah.
Still to be determined. You know, there's just us two, working away at it, so that's somewhat limited. We'll have to just see what is possible.
Yeah.
What's the grand plan for you both?
That's a hard question. To keep it going, enjoy it, see what comes from that point.
And maybe, produce something. There's always a little bit of when you put a pedal board together as a musician, there's always a couple of those pedals that are on the board that you look down at and they give you the inspiration. So to build something that might give someone the inspiration, whether they want to be Brian May or they might want to be like Ian Moss or someone like that. But if they look down at that pedal and think, this is going to do something for me, and they step on it, and it does that. That's a good game plan.
And if I could add, whilst being unique in its own right, and not just being a simple copy of something else that is available on the market, and hopefully these pedals are quite unique sounding in their own right, and and inspire people to create music, not just be a Brian May YouTuber or whatever, but really create interesting music.
Right, Greg and Shaun, all the best with the project, and thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.